So we are here with Paul Martinelli. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm excited today.
Man, thank you, Cedrick. Anytime I get to spend with you and this community, I'm stoked. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, Paul, what I want to do is, a lot of people know you, and a lot of people hear you teach and speak in different places. But what I want to do is take a little bit different perspective, and I want you're going to give us some nuggets. I know in your answers, but I really just want to introduce the audience and let the audience get to know the man behind Paul Martinelli, right? So.
We're looking for dirt, Cedrick. Come on. We're looking for dirt, Cedrick.
So tell our audience a little bit about your leadership journey and how did you really get to where you are today?
I never realized that I was on a leadership journey until I reached a fairly high level of leadership. I never looked at it as leadership. A part of my leadership journey was frankly survival, Cedrick. It really was. I needed in order to lead, in order to survive kind of my childhood. I grew up in an abusive family, a really kind of violent home. And so I was emotionally abused, physically abused, verbally abused, and we grew up poor. And if anything was going to change in my life, it was going to require that I took the lead. Now, I didn't call that or define that as leadership, but from the earliest ages, I realized now, looking back, right, hindsight is 2020. I would be the kid that would organize 4 or 5 other kids in the neighborhood to go shovel snow. And since none of them had, the willingness or desire to go knock on doors, I was the sales guy, and I think that's really where I developed, sales skills. Right? We lived on a hill, and in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and that hill was a gold mine for me. Right? People would get stuck halfway up the hill in the wintertime. And again, I would organize kids. We would kind of line up on the hill and just wait. There'd be a car coming, and we knew. We knew what the driver didn't know. Once they committed to the hill, they were going to have to commit to us to get either up or down, and then I joined the Guardian Angels, and I think that was a really pivotal point in my life. I was about 14 years old. I was at a karate school, and a group of Guardian Angels from New York City. It's a civilian unarmed safety patrol known with their signature red berets, and they would ride the subway systems in New York City, and then they began to expand throughout the Northeast and Midwest of the United States, and they came into Pittsburgh, into the city, and I joined them, and I started just out as a member, and then because I was so passionate about what the movement was and what they were doing, I saw leadership voids and gaps. And again, I didn't define it as leadership. I just defined it as it was the next smart thing to do. Somebody needs to step in and organize this and keep this going. But then I had an opportunity to work directly with Curtis Sliwa, the founder of the Guardian Angels out in New York, and that's where real leadership came in. And you as a leader know, and you and I have both been kind of under the tutelage of the master of leadership, John Maxwell, where John says the highest degree of leadership is when you can get volunteers, right? And so here we were young inner city youth recruiting other young inner city youth to put on an uncool red beret, right? And go into public housing projects, and I can remember, and we're working in the heart of inner city. I was in Cabrini Green and Robert Taylor Homes in Chicago. I mean, that's the real deal. I was in the South Bronx. I was in, in New York. I lived at 126 in Lexington in Harlem when Harlem was Harlem. Right, when Harlem was not $1 million condos like it is now. Harlem was Harlem, and I lived above the Amsterdam News building, and I was always like the only white guy. But I developed leadership there, and then I started my first business, and of course from there, but again, I never defined it as I never looked at it as leadership. It's one of the reasons why, before kind of meeting John Maxwell, I had never read a book on leadership. I was probably an unconscious competent. I didn't know what I was doing that was right. I certainly didn't know what I was doing that was wrong. Right. But when you have so much passion for something, and when you have a desire and you have a willingness that you're willing to take risks, you can make all kinds of mistakes. It's kind of like if you've got money and you're building a business, as long as you've got sales, you can make all kinds of mistakes in research and development and customer service, all kinds of other things.
I've done that.
Right? So, yeah.
So when you talk about that hill of snow that you're on, you are actually, Grant Cardone says, "Who has my money?" You were that person before that you made that quote, really.
Exactly right. Everybody coming up that hill had my money in their pocket.
That is awesome. So, on your, I know you said, hey, you didn't really think of it as leadership, but you've had this really successful journey and a long road to executive leadership, right? Help our audience understand how your early entrepreneur experiences help shape your leadership style that's today.
Wow. In every way. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I made a commitment probably 20 years ago that whenever I see a kid who is hustling, I'm buying whatever they're buying. I have made little girls at Girl Scout Cookie Day. I've made their day. I've made their year. I walk up to a store and now I make them ask. I'm not going to just walk over and buy. Right. Give me the pitch, but I'll buy the whole table. You know what I mean? I'll buy every box they've got. Any kid that will knock on my door and ask me to buy anything, I've got subscriptions to magazines I've never read. I've got boxes of cards and foot-long Snicker bars. I mean, anything, because entrepreneurship really is a gateway to leadership. Sure. Communication skills, having an agenda, having clarity of that agenda, being able to transfer that clarity to the mind of another person, quick problem solving, all of those things that leaders do is part of that entrepreneur's journey. And I think that's one of the reasons why for entrepreneurs, it seems like we're natural leaders. I think we're probably natural entrepreneurs first, and then we develop those leadership skills.
Yes. And you're absolutely right. And a lot of people never realize that they are a leader because no one either verified it or confirmed it for them, but they're doing all the right stuff.
That's right. It doesn't come with a certificate, right?
Right. Exactly. So, now when we talk about building things and talking about ultra level of success, folks, and when we're talking tonight, I want you to understand that there are different levels of success for everybody. But when we're talking with Paul, we're talking about ultra level of success. Now, you've built the John Maxwell team, and it was over 37,000 coaches around the world. You've now built a new platform, the Empowered Living platform that has over 2 million subscribers. Now, you don't just wake up and just say, I'm going to do this, right? There had to be something behind that. So let's start with the John Maxwell team. What made you decide to do it, and what was one of your biggest challenges?
Yeah, to do it, I had found a niche, and again, I wasn't looking for a niche. I think the more you work, the luckier you get, right? And I think there is real power in saying yes to whatever that next opportunity is. And so I had an opportunity where I was getting certified through a training program that Bob Proctor had. Bob was made famous by the movie The Secret. And I went through his certification program, and there were holes and gaps all through it. It really wasn't a well-organized machine. Great content, but the infrastructure behind for a buyer, right, for a member, just wasn't there. And so I partnered with Bob. And I think that's an important part there is that in every single step that I've made with John Maxwell, with Bob Proctor, with anybody, is I've always gone in first and said, let me put my money where my mouth is. I'll invest in what I'm about to share with you. I'm not going to just give you an idea and say, hey, go do it. I'll fund it. And so that's what I did. And I built a certification program around Bob's content. And I realized that there were great thought leaders, great speakers. You look at a guy like Les Brown, arguably the best communicator in the world on any given day. Any day Les Brown has a microphone, it's a fight for who's the best in the world, and he's probably going to win that fight. But when they were done speaking, they were unemployed. They didn't have a business, and after they got paid $50,000 or $100,000 for a wow in an audience of 25,000 people, they didn't know how to manage that money either. Very much like a professional football athlete, right? Yeah. So I realized that I had an ability from all of my entrepreneur experience and business experience to be able to put structures underneath those. And so I started working with other thought leaders, other authors, other speakers, other owners of intellectual property, and creating models for them to monetize and create a system of duplication. Because my first official business was in the cleaning business. And when the light went off for me in the cleaning business, the first 3 years, I was always looking to next steal the company, right? I owned a cleaning company, and then I joined Amway. I owned the cleaning company. I joined New Skin. I owned the cleaning company. I was selling Cutco. I owned the cleaning company. I was always looking for something else because I just thought there's no money in cleaning toilets. And then it dawned on me that there is duplication here. When I sell a doctor's office the cleaning one time, and I put a team in there, that's just reoccurring revenue,
right?
Forever. As long as we don't screw it up, right. They're not looking to change the cleaning company. It's painful to change the cleaning company.
They're not having meetings saying, let's go out and look for new cleaning companies.
Not at all. No, it's a pain in the butt.
Right.
It's all, you have to really screw up to get fired, because for most of them, it's better the devil they know than the devil they don't,
Right.
Heck, half of it is if you don't steal from them, you're better than most of them, right? And but I realized, hold it, I could. This was duplication. It was like if I could own vending machines, how many vending machines? If you could own paid telephones 45 years ago, how many paid telephone routes do you want? And I realized, oh my goodness, and so when I sold the business, I had 150 buildings we cleaned every day, 100 full-time employees and a part-time staff of about 50. And so I realized that there was power in duplication. And so I would approach an intellectual property owner and say, look, we can build an army of people to take your stuff. You can only speak 365 days a year. But what if we had 1,000 people speaking every day, right? And so when I sat across from, but by the time I met John Maxwell, I had built this model over about 4 years. And I had probably generated close to $100 million in revenue through those different streams. So the model was proven. But I had never landed a big fish. John was my first kind of big fish. Here's a guy who was relevant, who had name recognition, who had already had an established, business at some level, who was recognized as an authority figure. Social media had now really taken hold, and he had 103,000 followers on Facebook. And so I knew what my model could do. And unlike everybody else who had approached him, I said to him the magic words, I'll fund it. Everybody else went to John and said, hey, you should have a coaching program and I should run it for you. You put up all the money, you take all the risk. So I said, John, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build this model for you. It's going to take $400,000 to build the website, to find the faculty, to create all the collateral material and all the resources, and to get us to launch. I'll fund that out. I'll be first dollar out. I'll get my money back as so if it doesn't work, I lose. If it works, at least I get to zero. And so when we launched the team, I was, secretly just praying, can 150 people buy this? I just need 150 people, because then I get to zero, right?
Right.
And then right before the launch, John sat down and said, hey, look, everything looks great, but here's the deal, is if one person buys, I'm committed for 12 days a year. I have to work 12 days a year. I have to go to the 2 IMCs and I got to do other stuff. And my rate's $100,000 a day. You've got to guarantee me personally $1 million. And honestly, it was the entrepreneur in me and it was the high school dropout in me all at the same time. I was stupid and ambitious. I just looked at John. I said, "Is there anything else? Like, is that it?" And he said, "No, that's it." And I said, "Done. Let's go." Now, secretly, it's okay to go on the hook for $1 million when you don't have $1 million to lose, right? Yeah, blood from a rock. But I did have the $1 million to lose. But the point was that I was willing to do what others just weren't willing to do, and that was really bet on me. Go to the casino of life and put all the chips on me, and we never looked back. And we created this process of duplication, and we found thousands and then thousands and then tens of thousands and then tens and tens of thousands of people who caught the vision of what the John Maxwell team could be. And the biggest challenge is that when I sat down with John, I had lunch with John and John got it. John got it right at that first meeting. After that, he had me do a pro forma meeting, right? Where I had to give him the numbers and show the structure. And at that meeting, I'm thinking I'm going to meet with John again. No. In comes Margaret, his wife, Mark Cole, his CEO for 10 years, David Hoyt, his speaker's agent, Charlie Wetzel, his writer, Stephanie Wetzel, his social media director, Stephen Maxwell, who is his son-in-law, not Steve Maxwell. I forget Stephen's last name, but so his son-in-law Steve is there, and Linda Eggers, his executive assistant. And at the end of this 2-hour pitch, it was like I was the gladiator in the theater in Rome, right? Yeah. At the Colosseum. Everybody's thumb goes down, except for John.
Oh, wow.
And so John is saying yes, I'm saying yes, and we're building this in the resistance of everybody's thumb down. That was probably the hardest part. Was it took me probably the better part of 5 years. 5 years. So we had launched and had thousands of members, and still, at best, I was getting this.
Yes.
Right? Wow. And resistance energy is tough, man.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. And that part right there, so how do you see, there are going to be some entrepreneurs that are out there, right? And it's going to be a $5,000 contract that they're working on, and they're going to get one person in the room that does this and everybody else is going to do this. How did you in that moment, or even the days after that, say, keep your calm and say, I know that this is going to work and I'm confident that it's going to work, and not give up?
Yeah. I read an article years ago. I live in Palm Beach, Florida. And in Palm Beach, Florida, the crown jewel is the Breakers Hotel. It is one of the most beautiful resorts you'll ever see in the world, not just in Palm Beach, but globally. And they lost a star. Now, if you're not in the hospitality industry, you don't know what that means. But if you are, it means the world. The difference between a 5-star and a 4-star is hundreds of millions of dollars. If you are a 4-star, Microsoft doesn't show up. Google doesn't. You are automatically off the list of where they even think they'll ever do a function, right? So they lost a star. And I remember reading the article of the guy who pulled the star. And they lost a star on a burned out light bulb.
Oh, wow.
A burned out light bulb. Now, if you go to the Breakers Hotel, I don't know how many light bulbs there are, Cedric. There's chandeliers bigger than my house, right? I mean, there's lights everywhere. But they had, I think they had like two or three burned out light bulbs. And so they were interviewing him, and they said, what's the difference between a 5-star and a 4-star? He said, well, here's what happens. You pull up to a resort, a uniformed bellman in whites with gloves, the whole things. You pull up, they open every door, they open up your truck, they take everything out. They get your name, they're radioing your name to the desk. A concierge comes out, meets you, escorts you and your spouse in. All of your luggage is brought in. You get to the front desk. They already have you checked in. They hand you. It's their pleasure. They don't ever say thank you. It's their pleasure. They give you the ticket. A concierge takes you up to your room. Your luggage is there. They take you into the room. They show you all the amenities of the room. They unpack your stuff. They put it all away. They give you a linen business card, linen paper, raised ink, all the things. They said, if you need anything, you press the button and we're there. And so you're in your room. You and your wife or you and your spouse are going to go to dinner. And as you get dressed, you realize that your shirt has a wrinkle. You press the button and the concierge there in 1 second takes the shirt, presses the shirt, brings it back. You're done. That's level 4. That's a 4-star experience. You think, hold it.
Yeah, exactly. They give me money.
5-star, get this. 5-star is that when they're unpacking your shirt, they notice the wrinkle.
Wow.
They anticipate your needs. So what I did is I looked at, okay, everybody else is a thumbs down. Why? What is driving their resistance? And what can I do to anticipate their expectation of my failure? Like, where are they expecting me to drop the ball to confirm their opinion of me? And then I would intentionally create scenarios that I didn't necessarily need to do to build the business.
Sure.
To create a win to overcome that perceived failure point. Yes. It took 5 years, Cedrick. And you were in many of those events. I mean, there was nothing wrong with those events. And right. So if you were one of those naysayers with your thumb down, if you were Mark Cole or David Hoyt or Linda Eggers or one of the other people with thumb down, by the second or third event where there's 7 or 8, 10,000 people and the event's going well and the P&L represents that, you would think by then, but still no. And that's the challenge of resentment energy. And this is something I think that everyone in your audience, everybody in the world needs to understand is sales at its highest level is the transference of emotion, the primary emotion being certainty. And when you establish certainty in the mind of the buyer, that puts the person in a channel of rapport. You can never break rapport.
Right.
You are never done selling. You're never done selling. The sale never ends.
Right.
As a matter of fact, when the contract is inked, the sale begins.
Yes.
Because you tell me this, if I sign the contract, can I still lose it?
Yes.
Well, then it's not a done deal, is it?
No, definitely.
It was not a done deal. And so I had to continually prove every step of the way, improve the model, improve myself, improve my loyalty, whatever that means, right? Proving my loyalty, proving my willingness to, do I really understand the values? Am I really living the values? I mean, all of that was subject. And part of that was one of the reasons why they were voting me down. These were people who had, and they were smart to vote me down. I probably would have voted me down too if I'd been around John Maxwell for the better part of 20 years. I had bet my whole career on this. And now all of a sudden this high school dropout janitor entrepreneur who thinks completely different than everybody else in the room thinks comes in and says, we're going to build something massive, right?
Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's amazing. And audience, I hope that's what you pick up and understand, that you may get those thumbs down. It doesn't mean you quit and you give up. Right?
Never. Oh, never.
Means people need more information, not it's over.
That's so right. Look, a no, and the objections that support it are nothing but smoke screens for uncertainty.
Right.
When they don't have the time, when they don't have enough information, when they need to think about it, when they need to confer, when they need to go to the board, when they don't have the resources, all of that is just a smokescreen for this sentence. We're just not certain yet.
Right. That's
And
powerful.
so if it really is, I'm going to tell you what, that's $1 million idea.
Right.
That right there is $1 million idea.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be setting up my thing so you guys can go ahead and pay for that right now. All right.
Right on.
So so then so the John Maxwell team is going great. You're continuing to grow and build, and then you said, I need something else, empowered living.
Yeah.
What was the pivotal moment that made you decide, I need to build something else? I need to do something else.
I'm getting us. Okay, there I am. I circled out for a second. But I always had a channel for my own expression. No matter who I was working with, I always made sure that in my contract, I still had the right to be able to create my own content. And it's interesting because, and maybe this is my own ego saying this, but when people would join the John Maxwell team, if I heard this once, I heard this 10,000 times. I joined for John, I stayed for you. I joined for John, I stayed for you. In that I wasn't teaching leadership, I was teaching mindset. I was teaching entrepreneurialism. And although people joined on the name of John Maxwell and the reputation of John Maxwell and the content of John Maxwell and the leadership content, once they got that, they realized they needed something more because they met the true enemy, and the enemy is within. It's the voices of self-judgment that hold everybody back. So you can have all of the resources, you can have all the best content in the world, but if you lack the belief that you're worthy of bringing it forward in the world, you won't. And so people needed those tools to be able to break free from their own, self-imposed prison. And my lane in the faculty was mindset and entrepreneurship. And so people were really tuning to that. So I had always had, a creative outlet through a business model where I could create my own lessons and I could teach. And so I was slowly, just holding on to, my business. It was called Empowerment Mentoring at the time. It was a program that I had built, right after I ended my partnership with Bob Proctor. I started Empowerment Mentoring, and I partnered with Les Brown. And then over the years, whatever thought leaders I was working with, I would bring them into Empowerment Mentoring. We would create courses and content for people, and it would sit on that platform. As that platform grew and grew and grew, and truly through the exposure of John Maxwell, in John, when John steps into your life, everything in your life becomes magnetized. When somebody of that stature, right, and that, John's got a footprint, right? So John put me in front of people who would never listen to me or would never even give me a shot to be able to speak to them. There's no doubt. My success is absolutely built on the reputation and legacy and the work of John Maxwell. I make no bones about that. But what I did do is I made sure that I continue to have this outlet and resource for my own creativity, with John's blessing and understanding all the way. And what I would do is, I would create content for my own business, and I would end up giving it to John Maxwell team members. So I would do a study on Think and Grow Rich. I have 50,000 people enroll in that program, and then I would give it for the John Maxwell team members and give it to them for free. And so I think the big pivotal point for me with the platform of Empowered Living is when I realized what is its true purpose. And I realized that its true purpose is to platform other people. Its true purpose is to do for others what it did for me, which was give me a shot, give me exposure. And so we have yourself and your team with the Black Entrepreneurs Institute. We create that platform for you guys that you might otherwise not have. Anybody who's writing a book, we promote them. We have a show for empowered women. We have a show for anybody who's a thought leader who wants to, or an up and coming coach or author. We give them 15 minutes. We have a slot every day in our schedule where we put them, live on the page and go. And let them swing at the ball. And we never take an affiliate fee. We never take a commission. It's truly just to position other people. And, now part of the reason I'm able to do that is I've worked really hard in my life. I'm blessed and I don't need it financially. But the other part of it is it's really my tithe back to the world. To whom much is given, much is expected. And I've been blessed. And so I realized early, later, that my business was really the platform. It wasn't even my body of work anymore. It's so much, with 2 million people all over the world. It's so much bigger than me, Cedrick. You know that. You know that. I mean, it's so much bigger than me now. And isn't it awesome to see what you're doing with the platform? Like you're serving the platform in its community in ways I could never serve it. Regina Bryan, who's running the Empowered Women segment, she's going to take that show. She's going to be Oprah. She's going to kill it. She wants to own it, right? And she wants to bring it forward. We just this last weekend, we had, and depending on when this airs, we had Paul Creed, the piano player.
Yeah.
Awesome. Here's awesome guy, right?
Yes.
But he's playing. He would normally be playing his music at bars. Bars are shut down, and I wanted to help him and give him a platform. And so he takes the platform on Saturdays for 2 hours and just does songs by request. It's so much fun. People love it. That's bigger than me. Yes. How about Dash Upward with Michonne and what they're doing with youth? A daily reading for young kids, a morning show for kids. And then even with my own staff, we have a young woman who works for us, Kiona, and it's given her a position to be able to kind of do a daily show. So it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I always listen to Kiona in the morning. I love her updates that she does. I think the first time I listened to it was purely by accident, and I clicked on it and I listened to it. I like her voice.
Yeah.
But that's visionary by you to take a social media platform and really create. It's really like a whole network. Like Tyler Perry just built this whole studio in Atlanta, right? And that's really what you're doing here by having different variety of things.
Yeah, I see it as a TV station on Facebook that gives people who have something to say, but maybe not the audience yet to say it to, a shot.
Yeah,
and also to give people like you. I mean, when I heard your story and your background, I thought this is a gold mine. I mean, you are like one of. Have you ever read the book The Millionaire Next Door?
Yeah,
I think it was Paul Stanley.
Mm-hmm.
You remind me of that story, in that you're one of those best kept secrets. That if people don't take a little bit of time just to listen to who you are and your story, they could completely miss it. But if they'll listen to you. If you'll give Cedrick 10 minutes and let him speak, then you realize, ooh, let me grab a pen. He has something to say. And there's so many people like that in our community. And I just want to platform them and help them and, let them go and do great. So if you go to my Facebook page, it's promotions of everybody else. That's
awesome. And that's a servant leader.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And personally, I thank you for giving me a platform, giving the Black entrepreneur a platform to come on and because we'd have an audience, but not that big of an audience, right? So it's definitely benefited us and our community.
Yeah, you're helping so many people.
Absolutely. Paul, I always do a segment in here called "Would You Rather." All right. So people want to know, what would you rather? Paul Martinelli. All right. So would you rather have $1 million in Amazon gift cards or $100,000 in real money?
Would I rather have
in Amazon gift cards or $100,000 in real money?
Oh, gift cards. For sure.
Gift cards. Yeah. Plus it's Amazon, right? It's all.
You buy the world with Amazon. Yeah.
Exactly. They even selling houses on there now. So would you rather have free Apple products forever or free Wi-Fi wherever you go?
Free Wi-Fi wherever I go.
I'm an Apple guy.
Oh, well, I am too. But if you go to Nigeria, and it takes you 8 hours to watch a 15-minute video.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I travel all over the world. If you go to places, if you're in small villages in Romania, having access to the internet is having the world in your hand. I could buy an Apple product, but I can't bring that world into my hand without Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. Last one. Would you rather be a ninja or would you rather be a pirate?
I think a ninja. Yeah. I think a ninja. I think ninjas, for the most part, ninjas are serving a cause other than their own agenda, right?
See, I always think the ninja of throwing that star and get you.
That's Shuriken, right?
Yeah.
And I studied martial arts for years, so I'm a big Bruce Lee guy. So the ninja would always, yeah.
Awesome. So you're a Pittsburgh guy.
Yeah.
And you're raised in Pittsburgh. I'm a diehard Steelers fan, and so I have to ask first: are you a Steelers fan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm now I don't. My hobby is the stock market. So I don't watch lots of sports, but I am. Where I grew up, if you don't like the Penguins, the Pirates, or the Steelers, you get beat up, right? So. So yes, but I'm a Terry Bradshaw. I'm a Terry Bradshaw Steeler fan. I'm a Lynn Swann, John Stallworth,
Mel Blunt, Donnie Shell,
Franco Harris, Mean Joe Green, right?
Jack Ham.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am too. So my first, I grew up in Louisiana, but first football game, NFL game I saw was Dallas Cowboys versus the Steelers. I was in 7th grade. And the Steelers won. And, with all children, we're going to go with the winner. So I've been a Steelers fan since then.
That's it. Wow. And those were the years to watch football, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So what I was going to ask around that is, do you have a favorite, a memorable moment from back in the day with the Steelers?
There's several. After the football game, every Sunday, the real game took place at 430 Coolidge Avenue on that street. All the kids would come out and we would replay the game, right? So there's fond memories of that for sure. I was an altar boy, and it was always funny to hear, Father Wilt, who was our congregation's, priest. Boy, on football Sundays, the eulogy, got real quick, got real short, right? We all Father Wilt was in and out of church in Pittsburgh. It was so funny because if they didn't, people would leave. I mean, that was it, right?
Sure.
But when my grandfather died, and we were coming home from the hospital, we pulled into a small convenience store. And I walk into the store, and John Stallworth was there.
Oh, wow.
So there was Lynn Swann and John Stallworth. And arguably, Swann was better in public and was a better, talker and more gregarious. But John Stallworth was, you talk about talented.
Yeah.
And I was probably in 7th grade. So what are you, 14 or 15 years old?
Right.
And it was just a healing moment. I just, I'm heartbroken because I just lost my grandfather. And then here is John Stallworth, and like one of your heroes. And I remember, he signed something for me, and he shook my hand, and his hand came up to my forearm. I'd never realized, you don't realize how big a professional athlete is until you're up to them. And, and even though I was a young kid, still gigantic. And that was probably a moment for me. But I can remember, Super Bowl when we would win, everybody in our neighborhood banging pots and pans. And it was good to be, Pittsburgh was a great city to be raised in, right? It was, that really, because, if you look at what happened to Pittsburgh in the 70s with the collapse of U.S. Steel and literally towns being destroyed overnight. I mean, just ghost towns overnight, all those towns on the river gone. It had it not been for football, and I think that's why it's so important now that we get back to sports with what's going on with COVID-19. It can really be something that unifies the country again. There's so much divisiveness in the country. I hope that sports moving forward will really keep the politics of things out of it and really just be a uniting force.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Paul, from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, I know that the Empower Living, you recently launched the Another Seat at the Table program, which is an awesome program, and so you've been a leader in this area. Um, why is that so important to you?
I think because I've been gifted with this platform and gifted with an audience, I can't self-select out. I can't be in the position I'm in and saying, hey, well, don't look at me as a role model. It's kind of like when a sports person says, I'm nobody's hero. Yeah, you are. That's part of the job. It just is. So do it and do it right. And so I know how I lead and the decisions I make matter. I know people are watching. And so I was very intentional about that. Also, it truly is my heart. When I was in the Guardian Angels that I mentioned before, I was the oddball out. I was one of the very few, Caucasian people. Most of our members were Black or Puerto Rican kids from the inner city, and so I saw the inequality that they faced. Right now, I didn't know it at that time, but I saw that wow. If there wasn't something or someone that would intervene in their lives, they may never be able to navigate a way out of some of the conditions and circumstances they were in. And although I wasn't a minority, I was poor, right? And I was uneducated, and so I faced some of those same hurdles right. And I came from a broken home, so I knew what it was like to not be accepted at the country club. I wasn't accepted I wasn't accepted and invited to kids' birthday parties where I grew up because I didn't have a dad, and we were a broken family. And back then a divorcee was, meant something,
Sure.
So, and so I know what it's like to have that. And so it's part of my heart. And so when I built the John Maxwell team, I was intentionally looking for people who could really shine and who could make a difference. Gina Watts is one who, Gina Jones Watts, Deborah Tillman, right? And if you look at how I positioned people, in that organization, I was looking for women. I was looking for minorities to give them that. I brought on the first African-American faculty member, and then immediately stepped out of role of the president of faculty and put Chris Robinson as the president of faculty. And that was a really intentional decision to make a statement. I did one of our very first IMC events that spoke into this was kind of unity through diversity. It was a whole themed event. Long before George Floyd and all the other, tragedies that we had in our nation, I knew that's, as we were building the John Maxwell team, we needed to have that diversification. If you're going to build something sustainable, I began to fight against tolerance, because what I was hearing was everybody was saying, we got to be tolerant. We got to be tolerant. I don't know about you, Cedrick, but I don't want to be tolerated wherever I go.
Right, exactly.
I want to be accepted. I want to be accepted. And so we got to go beyond tolerance. And so it's been an important part of how I build teams.
Well, that's awesome, and it's an important message. It's an important cause, because if you're not intentional about it, then what you'll end up finding is, and no matter who you are, it can be a Black woman, Puerto Rican, whoever. If you're not intentional about it, you'll find yourself surrounded with everybody that looks like you, right?
Simply because it's convenient.
Sure.
I mean, truly, it's for a lot of people, it is just a matter of convenience. It's what's in your field of awareness. And so if you're truly a leader, you've got to break the convenience. You're going to say, hold on, I've got to look beyond beyond what I can see here. I got to step up so I can get a different perspective and look out to what I might not have in my field of vision. Because you're right. I mean, you are surrounded by your neighborhood. You know, the people who go to your church, the people who go to your activities, and that's all you see, and then you believe that's all there is.
Right.
And it's not. And so, you know, I always operate from, you know, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be right. I want to get it right. Right. And the best idea wins. And I'm convinced I'm not going to get it right alone. And I'm convinced that I'm not going to have the best ideas. And so I want, you know, ideas are options, and I want every option when I'm making a decision.
Absolutely.
And I truly see myself as a global citizen, and I truly see my business as a global business. That means I've got to transcend. I got to transcend into every culture. I've got to be able to interact in every culture. I've got to be able to understand the needs of everyone, and
Right.
and that needs to be represented on my team at the highest level.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, well, that's awesome. Again, thank you very much for thinking into that and being very intentional about that. So, what's been your happiest moment to date since you started the Empowered Living community?
Wow, my happiest moment.
I mean, beside today, I mean, that's different.
Yeah, there's several. I mean, when we struck the deal with you and the Black Entrepreneurs Institute, that was a really happy day for us, because you were the first show. You were the first show that we said we're going to give the platform to someone and let them have at it and let them just create whatever they want to create. That was a really happy day, because we had been working to that, and then finding the right partner. And, you know, truthfully, I think you and I and your team, well, I think it was you and I on a call. We were interviewing you for my show. I think you and I made that decision about 6 minutes, had it all in my head. We did it on a handshake. And I don't think it was 3 weeks before you guys were live on the air. It was so easy. It was so easy. And I think that's an important lesson, isn't it? Is that,
Sure.
you know, if it's easy, it's probably right. You know, it should be easy. And it was very easy. We didn't have to do a whole lot of work on our end. And I don't think you guys had to do a whole lot of work on your end in order to make this work. It just worked.
Right.
So that was a happy day. When we moved into our new building, Roddy Galbraith, my partner, and I, we had been traveling in Europe for our Empowered Living communities in France, Italy, and Romania. And then we went to Israel, and we had bought a building while we were gone, and it was being remodeled. And when we came back to have our kind of your own studio, you know, your first, you know, this is it. Because Empowered Living up until that time was really just on a laptop computer, right? There was no building, right? There was no building. There was no studio. The studio was, you know, our laptop or our cell phone, right? There was no, you know, everybody kind of worked satellite. But having, you know, your office, there's something about owning your own dirt, isn't there?
Sure,
Absolutely. You just bought a bunch of acres. There's something about having your own dirt, right?
Absolutely.
This feels good.
Absolutely. Well, that is awesome. Only a couple more questions here. So you've had a lot of success and traveled to a lot of different places, but you know, we've all had things that we failed at, things that just didn't work out the way we thought it was going to work out. So talk to us about one of those moments, and how did you overcome that and what you learned from it?
Yeah, big one. I spent $1.5 million on radio ads with Rush Limbaugh. We were building the John Maxwell team, looking to grow and expand. I had never done radio advertising, and so I knew that if we were going to go in, if I was going to do it, I wanted to make sure that I knew why I would fail if I failed. Right? I didn't want to say, well, maybe it was the wrong show, or maybe we didn't go big enough. So, okay, number one talk show meets kind of our demographic, you know, conservative, you know, for, you know, a kind of a college educated audience, 51 million listeners a week. And and he has like a Howard Stern. He has people who love him and hate him who listen to him equally.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
So that audience is there. The lovers and the haters are there. And both who love and hate him are also, would join John Maxwell team because it's so diverse, right? You know that being in the group, there are people who are left and there are people who are right, right? Yes. All the way down the line. And so, and I knew that we needed also to have his voice. So we paid the additional money to have him actually, do the commercial in the middle of his show. So, from radio that you could have an ad that's separate so they take a break, or there's times where the host is already in their monologue and then they add in whatever, product they're pitching. And so we did that. And I mean, I made sure I ticked every single box. I mean, we had a private meeting with John Maxwell and Rush Limbaugh and myself, made sure that Rush saw the vision. And it's $1.5 million, and it didn't work. We generated about $500,000 worth of revenue, so $1 million loss over 12 weeks. I would do it. I would do it again, and I think the mistake I made was that I thought I was buying advertising. And I thought what I was doing was I was advertising for people to buy the program. Had I known what the true value could have been, there were sources of value that I didn't know, and therefore I didn't leverage. Here's one of them. Imagine if you're a John Maxwell team member and you're an independent person, you're an independent member, and you're in your city, and you feel all the weight of being an alone entrepreneur, and you're driving down the road and you hear your company on the radio. There's something feels good about that, right?
Sure,
you just feel like, wow, right? Had I known that, I'd have leveraged that aspect of it more, and I would have squeezed more value out of it by highlighting that in the members' awareness so that they could have seen the value of that. Another is that, imagine if you were another thought leader who was trying to build a certification company and you heard this on the #1 show with the #1 guy. It could be a little bit demoralizing for you to think, oh my goodness, here I thought I was just competing with these guys on Facebook ads. Now, if I really want to compete with them, I got to step up to this level. And that was part of what I was thinking, was that I want to make sure that, it was kind of like, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, their biggest fear was always the 14-year-old kid in the garage, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
As I was building the John Maxwell team, instantly there were the copycatters, right? Everybody came out with the certification program. Most of them failed. But I wanted to have that platform be that campaign be big enough that it would send that message. I didn't realize how powerful it really was. And had I known that, I might have leveraged it a little bit more to introduce the pain of disconnect.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's actually, it's a good point that I want our audience to pick up on. You notice that Paul walked through the failure, but he was very analytical and was able to quantify what the mistake was and how he could do it differently if he did it again. I forgot who says it, but they say follow effective action by quiet reflection and then more effective action. That's an example of it, folks.
Oh, well, thank you. And I mean, experience doesn't change anything. It's reflected experiences that do, right?
Sure. Absolutely. So a final question for you. And I want to say again, thank you very much for making the time out for our audience today. I know that I took a lot of notes while I was listening to you here. But if people wanted to stay in contact with you or follow you, getting in contact with you, how would they do that?
They can email me, paul@paulmartinelli.net. It is .net. .com goes to a real estate agent in Canada. And I always say when you start to put it in, sometimes it autofills to .com. So make sure it's .net, or jump on the Empowered Living platform on Facebook. And there's two of them you'll see. One is kind of a private group. One is with 2 million people. If you join the 2 million, you're part of the bigger community. If you choose the one that has, I think it's got 30 or 40,000 members, it's kind of like the group of people that are going through programs and things like that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, any last messages you want to give our audience before we end?
Yeah. You know, if you're still watching, chances are you're trying to learn something for something. You have a dream, and shows like this are purposed. These are shows like Cedrick is doing right now. Programs that he brings to you are the lifeblood of that dream. Your dream needs you to be tuning into shows like this, and to be in an environment that's conducive for its growth. You're responsible to your dream. You're responsible to foster it, to nurture it, and to cherish it. And with that comes this awesome responsibility of who you listen to and who you let speak into your dream. And I can just tell you that I don't care where you've been, and I don't care what the current results look like. You would not be able to have that dream in your awareness if you weren't fully resourced to bring it out. Now, that doesn't mean you don't need to get better. That doesn't mean that that it's going to be easy. But you do have within you the resources to bring it out. And spending time with people like Cedrick on this platform, spending time with people in this community, those are the people that are going to help you access that which is already in you. Nothing new needs to be added to you. Nothing new needs to be added to you. God, the God that created the Atlantic and the Pacific, the God that created the rainforest, the God that created Everest, created you. And he created you the same way he created them, perfectly and abundantly. Everything you need is within you. Surround yourself with people like Cedrick in this community, and they'll help get the best out of it. So thank you, my friend.
Wow. Well, that is awesome, folks. Thank you again, Paul, for joining us, Talk Leadership with Cedrick.